let's just start out by talking about the expected path of Hurricane Milton and what kind of phosphate facilities might be in jeopardy.
Yeah, so this thing is taking the worst case scenario track. When you sit there, and I remember reading an article last night about this, they said years ago I asked a meteorologist, what's the worst case scenario for, say, Western Florida? This is basically it. This is a thesis of how bad it can possibly get. A straight west to east shot, horrible storm surge, horrible winds expected. So just from a public standpoint, this is going to be probably the first major direct strike hurricane in Tampa's modern history. And when you think about the number of people that live there, the number of people that have moved there, that's going to be horrible. But we've got to look at it from a fertilizer standpoint. There is a lot of fertilizer production that lies right there in Tampa, or just outside of Tampa and just south of Lake Bartow and New Wales.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So these three facilities are right in the line, millions of tons of production per year, massive amounts of production. And I guess at this point, I'm not as concerned about the damage to the facilities. These facilities were designed and built by really smart, really good people. And the engineers, of course, know these facilities are in Florida. We need to take into account hurricane storms come through. So build them to withstand those types of events. Doesn't mean there won't be damages, but largely they can handle it. I'm more worried about the things that they can't control. How long will electricity be out? How long will clean water be out? How long will your workers be at home helping their friends, helping their family? Because at the end of the day, that takes precedence over work every single day of the week. So even if the facility is able to operate, if your workers are still at home trying to clean up and salvage their life, you're not doing anything.
Yeah, and I was listening on the radio this morning about that and being the direct hit. And even though it's, fluctuates between a 4 and a 5 and all of that, it's still going to be a major, major issue when it hits. The will the timing of this limit any production and delivery of phosphates in the Corn Belt?
Yeah, that's probably the most unfortunate part, is the fact that we're less than 4 weeks away from the start of fall season. The
Yes.
majority of the Midwest is going to start rolling very, very hard November 1. Harvest, every single thing that we are seeing shows that harvest is on time, should be well out of the way. So we're not going to have that delaying us. Weather so far has been very conducive to a good fall run. And frankly, inventories have been tight anyway, globally and here at home. So prices are high, inventories are tight. We still see demand being pretty substantial here this fall. And now we just have this one more thorn in the side of the marketplace.
So that'll drive prices higher still?
That's the expectation. We haven't truly seen that just yet. The market is not taking advantage of it per se. I think they want to sit back. Obviously, there's a little bit of fear that there's going to be demand destruction this fall. Phosphate prices are high versus historical values. They are extremely high versus grain values. Phosphate is not in a good place right now. So there's a little bit of fear that fall demand just may not be quite as big. But my fear is you start to see the farmers starting to step forward to buy a few more, and we start to figure out just how long this outage is going to be. That's going to be
Yeah. Are there producers, farmers out there who forward contracted their supply and are just waiting for that? Or is this more of a, I guess, the impact being on, I guess, widespread? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's going to be. There are some farmers who have locked in their fall needs. There's been some retailers that have locked in some of their fall needs. But I would say everybody has been much more conservative on those buying patterns. So it's not nearly as robust as it has been. You look at the farmer economics all the way through this summer, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse by the day. And if you are someone that deals in the fertilizer world, well, you don't want to buy the physical and then watch the market tank on you. You can't handle that price risk. So everyone's extremely cautious on buying extra, buying more than what they think they need. And now all of a sudden we've got a very tight supply situation. We got a lot of just-in-time demand that's going to be building up and ready to go as soon as it's time to hit the fields. That's a bad, bad combination on a market that already is punishing us.
Right. So if we go back a couple of weeks when Helene hit, and that damage reached up into the almost to the mid-Atlantic area, And so this on top of that, is that going to have any impact on the production and the delivery?
Yeah, so Helene, it was a glancing blow to the Tampa area. Now, it did impact some production. There was some tonnages that were lost, but it could pale in comparison to what this storm could do, just given the fact it's such a direct shot. I mean, if Helene was our warning shot, this is what it was warning us about.
Hmm. What else do farmers need to be concerned about in terms of this and the impact on their operations?
Well, from this storm specifically, not really much else, unless they are in that area, right? There's a lot of farmers in the Florida region that, of course, are looking at the storm, citrus and small fruits and things like that. They're looking at this like, oh no, my
Hmm.
trouble because of the wind damage and everything else. So those guys and gals are obviously they're in danger. But as the market as a whole, this is really only impacting the phosphate market because of the production that's based down there. Now,
Okay.
also been seeing nitrogen prices go up significantly here in the last week or two based on some global events, but that's outside the hurricane event.
Hmm. Okay. Um, what else are you concerned about here with relative to just, I guess, maybe the next month or two going forward?
We are still seeing a phosphate and a nitrogen market that we think has more upside to it. And I don't like saying that. I don't like having that point of view. I don't want to sit here and think the prices are going to go up because they're already too high. Farmer
Hmm.
economics are already very, very poor, especially compared to the last couple of years. I mean, a lot of guys this year, I think, are hoping that everything works out and they can just make their payments. You look at 2025, it's very similar, very poor farmer economics. So there's nothing to get excited about.
Hmm.
But we have to sit there. That is the one side of it. The other side of it is just the S&D of fertilizers. Phosphate, globally, things are tight. China's your biggest exporter historically. They've been scaling way back. So supplies are tighter. India is your world's biggest buyer, not consumer, but buyer. Their
Hmm.
stockpiles got dangerously low. They are playing catch up on those. And so they're a much bigger buyer. So less supply, more demand, dangerous. Now we're talking about taking out phosphate production in Florida, dangerous. We ended last fertilizer year low on inventories, and we've been very conservative on our buying patterns, dangerous. And I actually had a discussion with somebody online last night. They're like, we've talked about all these, outages and things like that. We never see them. And you're right. Presuming you are willing to pay the price and you are willing to wait the time frame for that product to show up, you'll always
Is there anything bright on the horizon?
all storms eventually pass.
Yeah, right,
I think
right. We can just, kind of cross our fingers that, they don't get hit again.
yeah, exactly. There is that. And then farmers as a whole, we've gone through several very good years. And of
Mhm.
course, they can always be better, but they have been good years.
Yeah.
We knew there was going to be a reset. We knew there was going to be a period where we kind of quote unquote paid for that time.
Hmm.
Love that. We've come through very bad times before. We came out the other side. We'll do it again this time around. Um, so it's just a matter of, put your head down, work. Don't let emotions dictate your decisions. That's a bad idea. My wife will be the first to tell you I've done it many times. It does not work.
Right,
It's just keep your head down. Just take your opportunities when they're there. Don't, this whole thing of like, oh, to keep getting better, keep getting better. And hope is not a strategy.
right.